Okie doke. Aaron, thanks for being here. These are hard conversations. This is a hard conversation.
Yeah.
And as we were talking earlier, like no pressure to have answers or like sort of like tweet size quotes. I think the whole
Mhm.
point of our conversation is today is like, can we be somewhat honest about these things that are really hard and present, particularly for Minnesotans, which like to set the table for everybody. Um, I'm really interested in what seems like a national phenomenon, maybe a worldwide phenomenon, but certainly in Minnesota, like how can the left talk to the right
Mhm.
after Renee Good, Alex Preti, ICE in
Mhm.
Minnesota for the last 2 months, the Epstein files, just like if it wasn't enough already with just the sort of polarization of Trump, period. But then on top of those things, it seems like the left and probably the right too, both
Mhm.
have visceral reactions to each other, like cannot even like it like the like I saw that certain restaurants, or maybe it's just one restaurant, will pay for legislatures to have lunch together who are on the like the left and the right to have lunch together. Like they will pay their meal. And I
Right.
think for many people, it's like I can't even speak, look at, think about this, that, or the other person. So um, I know that you have like you're willing to talk about your experience, which I think is really
Yeah.
interesting. So for people who don't know you, would you introduce yourself and then introduce yourself to this? Like, I don't want to introduce you for you, but how did you and I get to talking about this and what's your experience?
Okay. Yeah. So a little bit, I'm Erin, by the way, and I grew up in a very Christian conservative household and grew up voting Republican all the way up until 2016. And it's because that's how I grew up. That was the environment, that was the thing to do. So it changed for me in 2016 when Trump came into the picture, and I was watching one of his rallies on TV, and he was talking, and my little kids were at the time, I think they were about 8 and 10, and he Trump mocked one of the reporters that had a disability,
Hmm.
and my son said, "Mom, that's not nice." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. That isn't nice." And, for a child to see that coming from an adult who is on the way to being a leader of the United States, it was sickening to me. And at the same time, I was a teacher. I taught adapted physical education. So I worked with a lot of students with disabilities and things like that. And yeah, it was a very sad thing to see, a hateful thing to see. And um, from then on, it changed my viewpoint. And um, so I no longer really associate with a party. I started looking more towards people, the way they treated other people, the way they held themselves in leadership, whether they were being honest or telling lies, things like that. And and so that's when things began to change for me, and I started looking more and more into politics. I really wasn't interested in them before that. So, um, but I think it's important that we have leaders that represent people well, all kinds of people. So, um, that was kind of the big start for me as far as politics go, and um, people in my family didn't change. They stayed on this very strict conservative road, I guess. And so it started to strain relationships right away, right away. So it's kind of been building up to this point. And Ryan, I've just kind of been following you for the last few years. I lived in Hugo prior to moving up to where I am now, about 45 minutes north. And and you had posted something about, is anybody interested in a PDF type of booklet
Mhm.
on how to navigate talks with your relatives or friends when you have these real polarizing differences. And so I'm like, yes, please, can I look at that? Because um, my my dad passed away a few years ago, 2023. But my mom, she lives right next door to me,
Mhm.
and she's always been a best friend. And but we are on very different wavelengths as far as politics go. And I would say the last year has probably been the most trying year in our relationship. Um, for me, there has been a lot of anger, there has been a lot of resentment. Um, there has been a lot of hurt, and just I don't understand. It's still hard for me. It's hard to understand that somebody who had guided me in faith my whole life could support a leader like Trump and even vote for him in the first place, especially in the second election after we had seen the lies, we had seen, you know, the Epstein files, we had seen the way he treats people, his choices. It was it's hard. It's really hard, and it's been tough to navigate. So that's kind of a little bit about me and where I am today. So,
Yeah, I think uh I think the number of I think the number of daughters who have strained relationships with their mothers who listen to who may find themselves listening to like I think in general it
mhm,
just like when you were saying that I was like I can think of two right now who like fit that like who would raise their hands and be like that's our exact situation like
mhm.
almost verbatim like not the living next door but the best friend
Yeah.
st most strained how can it be that the person whom I derived my like core upbringing and my values from how can they like seemingly I don't want to say I've gone to the dark side but like that's the
Mhm.
perception it's like how can they now
Right.
just like seeming like they endorse someone or tolerate someone so how did you so I think the question is like
Mhm.
how do you work it out? Like what's
Hmm.
the question is like what's the answer? So like
Yeah.
how you said this year was the most difficult. That makes sense. I
Hmm.
think that's just to me that's like that makes sense because this year was sort of like the most heinous like number of things have happened.
Yeah.
Um but uh how like how are you can you describe to the extent you're comfortable like
Hmm.
what's working?
Hmm.
What's hard? What have you tried? What have you not tried? How are things right now? What do
Hmm.
you like? Whoa, imagine you're talking to other women, let's just say women who have moms, grown
Yeah.
women who have moms. Like, what do you say? Or what do you think?
I know everybody's gonna have a different journey with this, and they're gonna have um, a parent who, chooses not to listen at all or who may listen. In my situation, I've had so many um, stressful conversations, over the phone, in person. Um, it gets your heart rate up, you get stressed out, and you feel frustrated. Um, it's I'm lucky because my mom, she will listen. She doesn't agree all the time. I try to do the same thing. I do
Hmm.
try to listen to her viewpoints, and let her speak. And at the same time, we're very careful. We don't call names. We don't put each other down, things like that. But I do stand my ground, and she does too. And that's some of those things that we're not. I don't think we'll ever see eye to eye. Um,
Why is that? Like, I get the
Yeah.
no name calling and get the no put down. So you're having a, like a conversation.
Mhm.
You're listening. You're not agreeing. You'll
Right.
know. What did you say? You'll never see eye to eye. Why is
There are some ways, things that, for instance, immigration.
Mhm.
Let's pick that as one because that is a sticking point for us. And she's in favor of deporting illegal immigrants. And when this whole thing started, when the administration came in, it was we're going to deport the criminals, the
Mhm.
illegal immigrants who are criminals. And that was the furthest from the truth. I mean, we had here in Minnesota, it was awful, obviously. People were targeted for their skin. They were targeted for the way they talked. They were targeted because of where they worked. They were targeted um, because of where they lived. There was it really, they did not follow anything they said they were going to follow with that. Um, and, you know, Immigration, yes, I do. We need to have these boundaries for immigration, but the way that we treat people that are here already, to me, it's not worth hurting all these families. It's not worth terrorizing all of these families. And I don't, there is a better way to do it. And it's not okay, how this happened. And my mom, agrees to a point, but she also agrees that, we need to get them out. And I don't agree with that. I agree with let's help the people who are here do it the legal way. Let's help guide them and get through this because there are a lot of people that have been here for decades who have families here, who have children in school. And to me, there's just it's dehumanizing the way that it was dealt with. And she sees that to a point, but she's still happy that they're, just kicking people out. So that's we will never see eye to eye on that. So that's been one of the worst, I think, sticking points between us, especially when so many people I live in a very red community here. Um, but we had ice here for weeks and weeks, and fathers were taken. I helped for example, I helped one mother who was on bed rest. She had a kindergarten daughter, and she was due the following month, and her husband was taken away. She had no way to work, um, and and yet we had people here and that came. We had doctors, we had mental health specialists, we had attorneys that worked for free to get this father back, and he's not back yet. But people did come together to raise money for rent and things like that. And there's so many people that see that what was happening was wrong, and so I don't. It's hard for me to understand when people don't see this. What happened was wrong. So um,
So
yeah.
so um I think there uh, so there's you described like we see immigration enforcement differently
Mhm.
and um like what um so I think it's great and healthy and wonderful to have political differences and difference of opinion and differences of like I think the tax rate should be 12% and you think the tax rate should be I think it's signs of health. I think disagreement's healthy.
Yeah.
Um and in this particular context, a
Mhm.
la Trump and everything, it seems more about I have a sort of a mentor and a dance um yeah, like a dance mentor and a
Mhm.
kind of a mentor. He's like this isn't simply political difference anymore. This is like akin to a moral difference. And I
Yeah.
think what he mean he's like that's like language to describe the feeling people have that they simply can't engage. They have to like unfollow, unfriend, not. And if it's a family member, you can't unfollow or unfriend as easily your sister, brother, uncle, mother,
Right.
father-in-law. So the question is like, well, what do you do? Like, what's the playbook? What's the PDF? Like, what that you that actually, like, what do you do on Mother's Day or
Mhm.
Easter or Thanksgiving, where typically families get together? That's like one frame of the question. The other is like,
Mhm.
do you call your mom? What do you talk about? You
Mhm.
know, do you talk
Yeah.
about the kids and like the weather and the Vikings,
Mhm.
or you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess there are certain times where I consciously try to put things aside just for the sake of not having that tension and those conversations that are hard, that cause stress and things like that. Um, I've had to watch myself because there are things that come up that make me think of, you know, something that's happening today or yesterday and that make me want to talk about it. But there are times, yes, where I just choose not to bring it up. And I think my mom tries to do that a lot, actually, because she would rather not talk about it. Um, but for me, when I was, so angry all the time, is that was one way that I could, I don't know. For me, it was really important to get my feelings out about it. And I really did. I talked about it a lot. I still do. So a couple times my mom has said, "Can we not turn this into a political thing again?"
Mhm.
And it's like, well,
But you
then
describe
sometimes I drop it and sometimes I don't. So,
when you
yeah.
describe your mom as listening, like you say, like I wrote it down, listening. I think I
Mhm.
wrote down, yeah, listening. You said that she listens, but she
Yeah,
doesn't agree.
not always. Um, so my mom is different than some because what she has seen from this administration has been enough to turn her mind around on whether or not she wants these people in office.
Hmm.
And she doesn't, she is to the point now where she does not feel that Trump is a good leader for anybody and that it is causing political discord. He is causing division, violence, a lot of these, a war that we had no reason doing what we did because there was no proof of what he claimed. And it's caused deaths of Americans and thousands of people overseas.
Hmm.
And so she has actually been active the last month or month and a half in calling representatives to remove the administration. And so she has changed her thoughts around as far as our leaders right now. She does not feel that they are good. So um, for me, that's easier. It's a relief to me. It brings me some sort of peace that, okay, here I have, like I was talking about my mother, who has been a best friend, a faith mentor, um, and she's starting to see the light. And
Hmm.
so I don't know how I would feel if she was still standing by and supporting what is happening because, we talked about it yesterday. I cannot be okay with it. I can't accept that somebody would support what is happening and what has been happening and the way people have been treated and the way almost every country has been turned away from because of our leadership. I don't know how I would feel. Like I said, I wouldn't be okay with it. And, I talked to my mom about that yesterday, and she said, well, at the same time, you have to respect other people's choices if they're different than yours. And my thoughts are, if you support somebody that has is a criminal, in multiple different ways, who continues to lie, to hurt people, I'm not okay with that. So, I don't know. I may be in a different space if she continued to support what's going on. Um, but we've been talking so much. I've sent her articles every day, that talk about the way why I feel the way I do
And
and things like that.
and she reads the articles or listens to the.
Yeah. She reads the articles. I've sent her podcasts. She will listen to the podcasts.
How do you
She
know she listens? Like, do you then talk about them and be like,
She
okay,
does. Yeah. She'll email me back and reflect on what I've sent her. And so I know then we'll have a short email chat about it. And so it's yeah. So that I mean that's why I know she listens and why she thinks about what how I feel and what I'm saying and things like that. And she, last fall I I don't know, I gave her a little, I said, Mom, because she was watching Fox News and nothing else, right? And so I gave her like three or four different other news sources that were not so one-sided. And I said, can you not watch Fox News for a week or two and just follow these news sources instead? And she did it. And she still has gone back to Fox News. And so she doesn't see a lot of the negative things that are happening. But I share them.
yeah,
And I'm lucky that she receives them and she will think about that. So, I mean,
yeah,
for us, I guess the biggest savior for our relationship has been listening and not, reacting so quickly because when you're angry, it's so easy to react quickly and to get so angry so quickly.
hmm
So I think keeping a calm voice and listening even though you don't want to, it does wonders. So,
I think the media diet thing is really important and like
mhm,
ubiquitous. Like I hear the same thing about Fox News and other far right sort of like news outlets that it seems like primarily attract 55, 60 plus. Um, and when it's played around the clock, yeah, I think it takes otherwise well-intentioned, well-meaning folks and it just has yeah, a propaganda effect. Like it has the effect that it's tended to, which is to like create a certain political persuasion.
mhm,
So I've seen research on like perspective changing with media diet, and I
mhm,
can just imagine, yeah, like if you followed even just like added in perspective.
mhm.
Um, so what else? So if you had to, so let's try and wrap up because I think um there'll be people listening who say that's exactly my parent or that's exactly my
Mhm.
uncle or aunt. They listen to Fox News.
Yeah,
We share articles back and forth, but they're still sort of standing where they stand.
yeah,
Um, and so from your perspective, the path is listen
yeah.
calmly.
Mhm. If possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And play with media. Play
Mhm.
with like what does it look like to engage other media sources?
Yeah.
Um, and then what about in the interim? Like, let's say that takes time, whether it's
Yeah.
a week, a month, or a year.
Mhm.
What about like kids' sports events and birthday celebrations?
Mhm.
Uh, what do you tell yourself?
Yeah. So those are times where I do try to put things aside, you know, um, because in our family, the grandparents have always been wonderful grandparents, and our children love them. They don't talk politics with our children. And so we have always had grandparents at all my kids' sporting events and activities and things like that. And so yeah, I do think it's healthy to put things aside for for family. Um, but at the same time, I think it's still important to stand up for what is right too. You know, the kindness, the truth. Um, Something that we're not seeing. I mean, it's a lot of division and anger and violence right now that is consuming our country with our current leadership. And so I do think that it's important that we fight for what is right. So because we don't want to hurt people in our country, and that's what's happening right now. So I mean, even just the way that the people in our country are being talked about by our administration and things like that. It's so dividing. So, yeah. So listen, share your feelings in a calm way if possible, and try to put things aside for the good of your family, your kids, for that moment. So it's not saying that you have to believe in what they say just to be there with them, even though it's hard sometimes just to be in the same room and act like nothing is wrong right now. So, but it's part of getting through everything. It's going to pass. It will pass. I do believe that. And I believe that we're gonna, it's showing right now. Things are turning around with leadership. We need a lot more, but it will change. And when all this anger is over with, I think people are still going to want their family members around, because these are people that we grew up with, that we love, and they still love us. Um, but it's just this time of division. So I think it's important to remember that and then act and speak in a way that hopefully everything can be saved. And not saying that it's ever going to go back to the same that it was, but I hope for these loving relationships to be able to get through this. So, because that's what relationships are, they're work. So you have ups and downs, and I think if people love each other, then they'll work for that. So,
Well said.
all right.
Thank you for sharing. It's
Yeah.
super personal. I also part of me was thinking like um my mom died a long time ago, but she's like one of the actually not she died, but she's like still one of the most important people and like one of the people I love most and one of the people. So I appreciate you talking about your mom. Moms are forever the best and they always have like the best spot ever. So in no way, shape, or form, if your mom or any proverbial moms in this conversation are listening, like it is with the utmost love and respect, and just trying to that I hold your mom without ever having kn known her, right? So that's
Yeah.
not in a sense of like throwing your mom under the bus. It's the
Yeah.
sense of like, yeah, we have to figure out, we have to figure out, we have to speak honestly and like to figure out how to be our best selves and be our best selves. So, and you said it best, relationships are work, and how do we do that work? And so I think it's really cool that you shared, really brave that you shared, really honorable. Um, that's
Thank
all
you
I
for
got.
having me. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah.
So,
I'm gonna stop recording, but just hold on one second, okay?
okay, sounds good.
Okay.